It was just past midnight on the Harbour Bridge, empty, fog curling through the steel like ghosts. A lone car stood in the middle lane, engine still running, doors wide open. Inside, no one. But on the railing, a single red high heel and fresh blood dripping into the black water below. By sunrise, Sydney police called it a suicide. But Detective Ryan Blake knew better, because the victim had already died, 2 hours before her body hit the water. The body beneath the bridge. The Harbour Bridge had never looked so lonely. A thin fog rolled in from the bay, swallowing the city lights and muffling the hum of distant traffic. The sound of seagulls faded, replaced by the slow slap of water against the stone pylons. At exactly 12:07 a.m., a silver Mazda stopped midway across the bridge. The driver's door swung open as if pushed by an invisible hand. The engine kept idling, its headlights slicing through the mist. A red high heel lay abandoned near the railing, glinting under the weak glow of the streetlights. Minutes later, a cyclist on his way home spotted the car and called it in. By the time police arrived, the scene was as eerie as it was silent. No footprints, no witnesses, no sound, except the car's ticking engine cooling in the cold. Detective Ryan Blake. Detective Ryan Blake leaned against the railing, peering down into the dark water below. He'd seen his fair share of bodies pulled from the harbor. Overdoses, drunk jumpers, lovers' quarrels gone wrong. But something about this didn't sit right. Female victim, mid-30s, said Constable Harris, flipping through his notepad. ID in the car, name's Laura Kane. No signs of struggle inside. Looks clean. Ryan frowned. Too clean. There's no sign she ever stood here. Harris blinked. Sir? He pointed to the damp concrete. No prints, no heel marks, nothing. If she jumped, she didn't walk here. Someone staged it. That's the clue in the car. The Mazda smelled faintly of perfume, floral, expensive, and under that, a trace of smoke. On the passenger seat lay a half-burnt photo, edges charred. Ryan picked it up carefully. It showed a man and woman smiling in front of a cafe by the water. The woman was definitely Laura Kane. The man, unknown. But the back of the photo had one line written in neat cursive, open quote, "Forgive me before Friday." Close quote. Ryan's gut tightened. We're not looking at suicide, he said quietly. This is a message. Laura Kane. Laura Kane was a Sydney socialite, the kind people either adored or despised. She ran a small PR firm in Piermont, hosted charity events, and had a knack for turning every headline into her spotlight. Recently, she'd been splashed across tabloids for her engagement to Ethan Moore, a rising politician known for his clean-cut image. Ryan remembered the name. He'd seen it before, during a corruption probe that never saw daylight. He turned to Harris. Get a team to her apartment. Don't tell the press yet. If Moore's involved, we'll have cameras crawling all over this by morning. The witness. At 2:35 a.m., an old fisherman named Tommy Greaves wandered into the temporary police tent near the water's edge. His face was weathered, hands scarred from years of hauling nets. You the detective? He rasped. Saw something weird tonight. Ryan motioned him to sit. Tell me what you saw. Tommy scratched his beard. Was fishing off Dawes Point, right under the bridge. About midnight, I heard a car stop above me. Then a splash. Big one. Thought someone dumped something. But here's the thing. I looked up and I swear I saw two shadows. Not one. Ryan's pen froze. Two? Aye, one small. Woman, maybe. The other taller, broad shoulders. They were arguing. Couldn't hear much over the wind. Then the tall one leaned over the edge, looked down like he was making sure she was gone. Ryan met Harris's eyes. Find me every CCTV within 200 meters of that bridge. By sunrise, Ryan sat in the incident room, a cup of stale coffee in hand, eyes glued to the footage. Camera 14, northbound lane. At 11:52 p.m., Laura Kane's Mazda appeared. She wasn't alone. The passenger side door opened briefly, and a man stepped out, wearing a dark trench coat and a cap pulled low. Unfortunately, the angle was bad. The man's face was obscured. At 12:06 a.m., the car stopped mid-bridge. At 12:07, the man got out, walked around to the passenger side, opened the door, and disappeared behind the car for 37 seconds. Then only one person returned. The man. He got in the driver's seat, turned off the headlights, and drove off the bridge. Ryan leaned forward. So she never drove here? No, said Harris. And the car came back 20 minutes later, parked in the exact same spot, and the driver walked away. Which means, Ryan said grimly. He staged her suicide after killing her elsewhere. The second body. At 10:30 a.m., divers located Laura Kane's body beneath the bridge. Her arms were twisted unnaturally and her skull had a hairline fracture. But the pathologist's report hit harder. Open quote. Time of death, approximately 10:15 p.m. Cause, blunt force trauma to the back of the head. No water in lungs. Close quote. Ryan exhaled slowly. She was already dead before she hit the water. Sir, Harris said quietly, that means she was murdered, Ryan finished. And someone wanted the world to think she jumped. The politician. By noon, reporters were already swarming the police precinct, microphones flashing, questions flying. Detective, is it true the victim was engaged to Ethan Moore? Was this a suicide or homicide? Any truth to rumors about political ties? Ryan ignored them and walked straight into the interview room. Ethan Moore sat there, dressed immaculately, but his eyes were red, not from grief, but from exhaustion. When Ryan entered, he offered a thin smile. Detective Blake, I was told you'd be handling this personally. Ryan didn't return the smile. You knew Laura Kane. I was going to marry her, Ethan said, voice tight. Next month. Where were you last night around 10 p.m.? Ethan hesitated, just long enough for Ryan to notice. At a fundraiser. Check with the hotel staff. Oh, we will. Ryan paused. Do you recognize this man? He slid the burnt photograph across the table. Ethan stared at it. For a split second, something flickered in his expression. Fear, maybe recognition, then it vanished. I don't know him, he said quietly. Never seen him. Ryan leaned back, watching him. Politicians were good actors, but this one was shaking ever so slightly. The call that night, rain lashed Sydney's streets. Ryan sat alone in his car outside the precinct, staring at the bridge in the distance when his phone buzzed. Detective Blake? It was Harris, breathless. You'll want to see this. We checked Laura's call records. Ryan's pulse quickened. And? Last call made from her phone was at 10:12 p.m., 3 minutes before she died. Guess who she called? Ethan Moore, Ryan guessed. No, Harris said. It was your number. Ryan froze. What? Your number, sir. But you never answered. Phone records show your line was active on another call. Ryan's chest tightened. Someone had spoofed his number, used his caller ID to contact her before she died. And now, whoever killed Laura Kane wanted the police to think he had something to do with it. The setup. By morning, Ryan's life turned upside down. An anonymous email hit the media, claiming Detective Ryan Blake had a personal connection to the victim, complete with a doctored photo of him and Laura together. Internal Affairs launched an investigation. His badge was suspended pending review. He stormed out of the office, furious. Someone's setting me up. Harris followed. Sir, if they're framing you, that means they're inside the system. They knew your number, your shift, everything. Ryan's jaw tightened. Then we find out who. The message that night, Ryan went back to the bridge, alone. The fog was thicker this time, curling like smoke through the steel arches. The Mazda had been towed away, but the bloodstain near the railing remained faintly visible. A sound echoed behind him. Footsteps. He turned, hand on his gun. A folded note slid under the guardrail, carried by the wind. He caught it just before it fell into the water. It read, in the same cursive as before, open quote, forgive me before Friday. LK, close quote. Ryan's pulse raced. Laura Kane hadn't written that note. Someone wanted him to believe she did. As he looked up, headlights flashed at the far end of the bridge, a black sedan idling, its engine humming low. Before he could react, the car sped off into the night, leaving behind a faint echo of laughter through the fog. Sydney 2 days later. The city hadn't slept since Laura Kane's death. Every news channel ran the same headlines: socialites shocking suicide and detective under scrutiny. But behind those flashing headlines, Detective Ryan Blake's world was crumbling. He sat on the balcony of his small Piermont flat, a cold beer sweating in his hand, the Sydney skyline shimmering in the distance. His badge sat on the table, a symbol of trust he no longer had, suspended, accused, framed. His phone buzzed again. Private number. He hesitated, then answered. Blake. Static. Then a distorted voice. Open quote. You're not supposed to be looking for her anymore, detective. Close quote. Ryan froze. Who is this? Open quote. Stop digging, or you'll end up like her. Friday's coming. Close quote. Click. The line went dead. Ryan's jaw clenched. Friday, the same word from the note. He looked out toward the Harbour Bridge, fog curling through the steel arches like smoke. Whoever killed Laura wasn't finished yet. The hacker. Ryan didn't trust anyone inside the department anymore, so he went to someone outside it, Mila Tran, a cybersecurity freelancer who once helped him crack a trafficking ring. Mila's workspace was chaos. Monitors glowing blue, wires like spaghetti, and energy drink cans stacked like trophies. When Ryan walked in, she raised an eyebrow. "Blake? Heard you're radioactive right now." "Just the way I like it," he said, dropping a USB on her desk. "This is from the bridge CCTV. I need you to dig deeper. Timestamps, metadata, anything that looks off." She plugged it in and started typing. "You think someone tampered with the footage?" "I don't think," Ryan said. "I know." Minutes turned into hours. Then Mila frowned. "Found something." On her main screen, she zoomed in on a single frame from the footage, 11:59:14 p.m. Behind the Mazda in the fog stood a faint outline. Not the man in the trench coat, another figure, standing by the railing, motionless. Ryan leaned forward. "Who the hell is that?" "The file's corrupted," Mila said, typing faster. "But look here. Someone patched over this segment. The system was hacked remotely around midnight." Ryan's eyes darkened. Meaning the killer wasn't just covering their tracks, they were watching the footage live. The disappearing witness. Before Ryan could process it, Mila's screen flickered. The footage vanished, replaced by a message. Open quote, "You're late, detective." Close quote. Then, total blackout. Mila cursed. "Someone's inside my network." Ryan grabbed his phone, ready to record, but the message dissolved into static. When the monitors finally rebooted, one camera feed came back. A live street view from near the Harbour Bridge. And there, in the distance, stood Tommy Greaves, the fisherman who'd reported the two shadows that night. Ryan narrowed his eyes. Why would they show us him? He didn't wait. He grabbed his jacket. "I'm going to Dawes Point." The wharf was quiet except for the slap of water against wooden posts. Ryan's torch cut through the fog as he moved closer to the spot Tommy usually fished. "Tommy?" he called out. No answer. He found Tommy's chair, his bait bucket, and his old radio still playing softly, a cricket match broadcast. But Tommy was gone. Then Ryan's light caught something, a boot print near the edge of the dock. Fresh, heavy. Drag marks leading into the water. He knelt. A blood smear glistened faintly under his torch. "Bloody hell," he muttered. The killer was tying up loose ends. The call to Harris. Ryan dialed his old partner. "Harris, it's me. Tommy's gone. Looks like abduction or worse." "Ryan," Harris whispered, "you shouldn't be calling me on this line. IA's monitoring your communications." "Then listen fast. The footage was hacked. There's a second figure and someone's cleaning house. If I go missing, check Mila Tran's system." "Mate, I'll try, but..." The line went dead again. Ryan looked up. A drone hovered silently in the fog above the wharf, red light blinking. Then, just as quickly, it zipped away into the mist. He'd been watched the whole time. The USB drive. When Ryan returned to Mila's apartment, the place was dark, door ajar, monitors shattered. He drew his gun and stepped inside slowly. "Mila," he whispered. A muffled groan came from the corner. She was tied to a chair, duct tape over her mouth. He ripped it off carefully. "They took it," she gasped. "Your USB? Gone." Ryan scanned the room. Drawers pulled out, hard drives missing, the whole place trashed. "They knew exactly what to take," he said grimly. Mila's hands shook. "Before they wiped it, I saw a partial name in the metadata. Something like Morecom server, and does that mean anything?" Ryan froze. Morecom. Ethan Moore's private communications network. The politicians. The politicians' secret. Ryan broke into the Morecom server building that night, tucked between two corporate towers near Darling Harbour. Using Mila's recovered access codes, he slipped past the motion sensors and into the data room. Rows of humming servers filled the dark space. He searched the central terminal for any file linked to Laura Kane. After a few tense minutes, he found one. Open quote, Project Lark, confidential, close quote. He opened it. A cascade of files appeared, financial documents, offshore accounts, encrypted voice memos, but one folder stood out. Open quote, bridge incident / pre-footage, close quote. Inside was a video recorded 2 hours before Laura's death. Ryan hit play. Laura sat inside the Mazda, terrified, speaking to someone off camera. Open quote, "Please, Ethan, I didn't tell anyone. You said it was done. I just want out." Close quote. Then came Ethan Moore's voice. Cold, calm, calculated. Open quote, You were never supposed to see that report, Laura, and you're not walking away with it. Close quote. The screen flickered, then cut to static. Ryan's blood ran cold. The man who publicly mourned her was the same one who'd killed her. The setup deepens. Footsteps echoed in the corridor. Ryan quickly ejected the drive and hid it in his boot. Seconds later, a flashlight beam swept across the room. Police! Hands where I can see them! Two uniformed officers burst in, not from Ryan's old unit. One barked, "Detective Ryan Blake, you're under arrest for unlawful entry and obstruction of an active investigation." Ryan didn't resist. Not yet. "Who sent you?" They didn't answer, just cuffed him and dragged him out. Outside, unmarked cars waited, engines running. He saw a familiar face step out, Ethan Moore, wearing his usual politician's smile. "Detective Blake," Ethan said smoothly. "Still chasing ghosts, are we?" Ryan glared. "You killed her." Ethan smirked. "Prove it." Then he leaned closer and whispered, "Friday, midnight. You'll understand everything by then, if you're still breathing." The escape. On the drive to the precinct, Ryan's instincts screamed that this wasn't an official arrest. The driver never radioed dispatch. The car didn't take the usual route. At a red light, Ryan saw his chance. He slammed his shoulder into the nearest guard, grabbed the wheel, and kicked the door open. The car spun out near Barangaroo Wharf. He hit the pavement hard, but rolled to his feet. Bullets cracked behind him as he sprinted into the alleyways, disappearing into the neon glow of the night. The ghost recording. The next evening, Ryan hid out in an abandoned ferry terminal. He turned on the small device he'd stolen from Morecom, a voice recorder labeled Lark07. Laura's voice came through, trembling. Open quote, "If something happens to me, Detective Blake will know why. The report's real. It's about Harbour Project Lark, the cover-up, the payoffs, everything. Ethan." Close quote. The recording cut off mid-sentence, replaced by static. Then another voice whispered, open quote, "You're running out of time, Detective. Friday's almost here." Close quote. Ryan stared at the recorder, heart pounding. Someone was not only monitoring him, they were taunting him. Friday approaches. The next day, headlines exploded. Open quote, "Detective Blake named suspect in bridge murder. Moore calls for justice." Close quote. Ryan was now Sydney's most wanted man. He watched from a distance as police sealed his flat and raided his car. Every exit was closing fast, but he still had the video, the only proof tying Moore to Laura's death. He called Mila again. "I've got what we need." "Ryan, you can't go near him. He owns half the city." "I'm not going near him," Ryan said quietly. "I'm going to the bridge." Back to the bridge. Friday, 11:45 p.m. The Harbour Bridge was empty again, just like the night Laura died. Rain slicked the asphalt, and the air smelled of salt and danger. Ryan waited near the same railing, camera ready, voice recorder in hand. At exactly midnight, a black sedan pulled up. Ethan Moore stepped out, alone this time, umbrella in hand, coat whipping in the wind. "You couldn't let it go," he said, smiling faintly. "You just had to be the hero." Ryan held up the USB. "It's over. The footage, the accounts, it's all backed up." Ethan chuckled. "You really think I came here to argue?" From the shadows behind him, two men emerged, the same fake cops from the arrest. Ryan drew his gun. "Don't." Ethan stepped closer. "Laura wasn't innocent, Detective. She was blackmailing me. I just took control of the narrative." Ryan's finger twitched on the trigger. "She trusted you." Ethan smiled coldly. "And she trusted you too. That's what made her the perfect trap." Before Ryan could respond, headlights flared from the far end of the bridge. A speeding truck? Horn blaring. Ethan's smirk widened. "Goodbye, Detective." The truck roared toward them like thunder, headlights blazing through the rain. Ryan had 2 seconds to choose. Jump the railing or face it head-on. He dove sideways, rolling hard across the wet asphalt as the truck smashed into the black sedan, sending metal and glass flying into the night. Flames burst across the bridge, a wave of heat slamming into Ryan's back. He coughed, ears ringing. The sedan? Gone. Ethan Moore? Nowhere. But someone was clapping. From the far end of the bridge, a tall figure stepped through the smoke, wearing a black coat and gloves. The man's face was hidden under a hood, but his voice carried clearly through the rain. Open quote, "You never learn, Detective." Close quote. Ryan raised his gun. "Who are you?" The man chuckled softly. "I'm the reason she's dead, and the reason you were chosen." Chosen. The word hit harder than the explosion. The stranger. The stranger stopped a few meters away, the firelight dancing in his eyes. Open quote, "You think Ethan Moore was the mastermind? He was a pawn. Same as her. Same as you." Close quote. Ryan steadied his aim. "Then tell me who you work for." Open quote. "No," the man said, smiling. "You'll see soon enough." Close quote. Before Ryan could fire, a flash grenade rolled between them. Blinding white light, deafening bang. When his vision cleared, the man was gone. Only a silver coin remained on the wet ground, engraved with a symbol Ryan had never seen before, a hawk clutching a key. He pocketed it, breathing hard. "What the hell is this?" Hash hash, the escape sirens wailed in the distance. Police, fire, and media drones converging fast. Ryan couldn't be found here. He'd be blamed for everything. Again, he climbed down the maintenance ladder beneath the bridge, rain pelting his face, until he reached a service platform just above the water. He crouched there, soaked, heartbeat thundering. Somewhere above, officers shouted, open quote, "Search every section. He's not getting away this time." Close quote. Ryan stayed still, waiting until the lights faded. Then he slipped into the darkness along the underbelly of the bridge, a maze of rusted beams, dripping cables, and echoing footsteps. When he finally reached shore, dawn was breaking. The hidden USB. Back at the abandoned ferry terminal, Ryan checked the drive he'd hidden in his boot during the chaos. Miraculously, it had survived. He plugged it into a battered laptop. Inside was the video he'd already seen, Laura pleading with Ethan. But this time, another hidden audio file appeared. He clicked it open. Open quote, "Audio log Project Lark." Male voice 1. "The body won't stay hidden long. The detective will find her." That's the plan. Make him the story. "And what about the leak?" "Handled. She thinks she's meeting him on the bridge." "Good. When it's over, erase everything. Project Lark moves to phase 2. Close quote. Ryan froze. There it was. Confirmation that Ethan and someone else had conspired to frame him. But the mystery voice, calm, precise, wasn't Ethan. It was someone higher. Someone powerful. He replayed the file, amplifying the background. A faint beep echoed at the end, a timestamp code linked to a security agency file. Mila would know what that meant. The hacker returns. When Ryan found Mila again, she was hiding in a friend's rooftop studio in Chippendale, surrounded by screens and takeaway boxes. "You look like you've been through hell," she said. "Just the warm-up," Ryan muttered. He handed her the drive. "I need that voice identified." She listened, then frowned. The code at the end, it's government, not police, not federal, private defense contractor. "Name?" She typed rapidly, eyes darting. Then she stopped. "Ryan, the signature matches Hawkeye Security Group." Ryan blinked. "Hawkeye? Top-tier military intelligence. They handle black ops, surveillance, political protection deals, and they've got a symbol." She zoomed in on her screen. A hawk clutching a key. Ryan's blood went cold. Same symbol as the coin. The meeting that night, Mila received a message from an encrypted address. Open quote, "Stop digging. You have one chance to walk away. The detective is already dead." Close quote. She showed it to Ryan. He smirked. "If they think I'm dead, that's our advantage." They traced the IP, a temporary relay near Circular Quay. Ryan grabbed his coat. "We're paying them a visit." Circular Quay, 11:58 p.m. The rain had stopped. The air smelled of the sea. The quay was quiet except for the hum of ferries and the distant buzz of neon. Mila stayed in the van watching the signal tracker while Ryan moved toward the warehouse marked Hawkeye Logistics. The front door was locked, but Ryan slipped through a side entrance. Inside, rows of crates and equipment lined the dimly lit floor. Then he heard voices. 2 men. Open quote, "Orders are clear. Blake's file goes public at dawn." "And the video? We'll leak the edited version, make it look like he shot her." Close quote. Ryan's stomach turned. They were still framing him, one last time. He crept closer, snapping a photo of their faces with his phone, then accidentally kicked a metal pipe. The sound echoed. "Who's there?" Ryan bolted. Bullets rang out behind him. He dove behind a crate, firing back. 1 man went down. The other escaped up a stairwell. Ryan followed, breath ragged. When he reached the upper platform, the man turned, pulling his mask off, and Ryan froze. Open quote, "Harris?" Close quote. The partner's betrayal. Constable Harris lowered his gun slightly, eyes full of guilt. "Ryan, you weren't supposed to see this." Ryan's voice was ice. You were working with them? Harris shook his head. Not at first. They came after me when you got suspended. Said if I didn't help, they'd pin it on my family. I swear, mate, I didn't know it'd go this far. Far enough to kill Laura Kane? I didn't kill her, Harris shouted. That was Ethan and the handler. I just fed them intel. They needed someone inside your team. Ryan's anger burned hot, but before he could respond, a gunshot cracked. Harris stumbled, blood blossoming across his chest. From the shadows, the hooded man from the bridge stepped out again. Calm, deliberate, open quote, loose ends, he said simply. Close quote. Ryan fired, but the man vanished into the darkness as Harris collapsed at his feet. Ryan knelt beside him. Stay with me, Harris coughed, voice trembling. Project Lark, it's not about her, it's about you. Then he went still, the revelation. Ryan sat there, soaked in rain and silence. About him? What did that mean? He searched Harris's pockets. Found a folded note, damp and torn. It contained coordinates and one line. Open quote. He knows your file. Close quote. The coordinates pointed to a property outside Sydney, near the Blue Mountains. Mila tracked it down, an abandoned military communications station, decommissioned years ago. Looks like we found Phase 2, she said. The mountain facility. 2 nights later, they reached the site, fog curling between the trees, satellite dishes jutting like ghosts. Ryan carried a torch and a gun. Mila carried a laptop with a live feed to intercept outgoing signals. Inside, the air smelled of dust and oil. Old computers hummed quietly, still operational. A single monitor flickered to life as they entered. A video began playing. Ethan Moore, recorded before his death. Open quote, if you're seeing this, it means the plan failed. I was promised protection, but there's no such thing. Project Lark was never about the bridge. It was about him. About the detective. He was the real experiment. Close quote. Ryan's throat went dry. Open quote. Blake was chosen years ago. Surveillance, behavioral testing, manipulation, all under Hawkeye's directive. Laura was planted to monitor him, but she found out too much. They killed her to reset the narrative. Close quote. Ryan staggered back. No, that's impossible. Mila stared at the screen. Ryan, your name's in the metadata of every Project Lark document. You were part of it. Unknowingly. The truth. On another screen, live CCTV feeds appeared. Footage of Ryan's own life. His home, his car, even the ferry terminal where he'd been hiding. Open quote, you've been our case study, detective, said a voice through the speakers, the hooded man's voice. We needed to see how far integrity bends before it breaks. You passed every test until she interfered. Close quote. Ryan's fists clenched. You killed an innocent woman for an experiment? Open quote. No, the voice said coldly. We killed her because she tried to save you. Close quote. Ryan fired at the monitor, shattering it. Sparks flew, then alarms blared, red lights flooding the room. Mila yelled, they're remotely deleting everything. Ryan grabbed the nearest hard drive. Copy what you can. Already doing it, she shouted, fingers flying. But as the screens burned out one by one, the final message appeared. Open quote. See you at the bridge. Close quote. Hashtag the return hours later, they stood on the cliff overlooking Sydney, the bridge glowing faintly in the dawn haze. Mila sighed. You can't go back there, Ryan. It's a trap. He stared at the horizon. It's always been a trap, but it's where it started, and it's where it ends. He loaded a fresh magazine, eyes burning with resolve. The harbor wind whipped his coat as the city stirred awake below. Open quote. They wanted to study integrity? He said quietly. Let's show them what it looks like when it fights back. The city was silent when Detective Ryan Blake pulled his old Commodore into the edge of Circular Quay. The sky hung low and bruised, bleeding faint gold along the horizon. Sydney Harbor shimmered like cracked glass under the early light. Too calm, too clean for what lay beneath. Blake stood at the rail, coffee in hand, staring at the bridge that had turned his life into a nightmare. The Harbour Bridge loomed above the water, colossal, majestic, and cursed. Somewhere up there, a killer had staged a masterpiece, and the city had applauded it as suicide. He replayed the case in his head. Emily Carter, journalist, found dead under the bridge. Evidence tampered. Witness dead. Partner missing. And now the truth was staring him in the face, painted across the steel arches like graffiti. This wasn't just one murder. It was a message. The note in the file, Blake returned to his office at the Sydney Crime Division. The place smelled like burnt coffee and rain-soaked paper. On his desk, someone had slipped a plain brown envelope under the door. No name, no postage, just a note scrawled inside on torn notepad paper. Open quote. "You're asking the wrong questions, detective. Try looking beneath the bridge, not on it." Close quote. His pulse kicked hard. The words were written in red ink, the same color used on the graffiti they'd found on the bridge. "The city bleeds." He didn't tell anyone. Not yet. Too many eyes, too many ears inside the department. Someone on the inside was feeding the killer. He grabbed his coat and gun, then headed for the docks. The hidden tunnel. The underpass beneath the bridge wasn't on any city map. It was built decades ago, a maintenance tunnel long sealed off after an accident. But Blake had been in homicide long enough to know nothing ever stays sealed in Sydney. He pried open the rusted hatch using a crowbar. The air that came out was heavy with salt, oil, and death. He turned on his torch, the beam slicing through the blackness. Halfway through the tunnel, he found them. Files, dozens of them, wrapped in plastic and stacked inside metal crates. Crime photos, police reports, evidence tags, all cases marked closed. Every one connected to high-profile suicides, bridge jumps, car crashes, overdoses. And all of them had one name written in the margin: Project Siren. Blake froze. That was the same code name Emily Carter had written about in her last article draft, the one she never published. Then, from the darkness behind him, a soft metallic click, a gun being cocked. The betrayal. He turned slowly. Detective Mason, his old partner, stepped out of the shadows, gun aimed steady. Open quote. "You shouldn't have come here, Ryan," Mason said quietly. "You weren't supposed to find this." Close quote. Open quote. "Project Siren?" Blake's voice was low, steady. "You killed her, didn't you?" Close quote. Mason's jaw tightened. "You don't understand. They own everything. The police, the courts, even the press. Emily got too close. You were next." Open quote. "Who's they, Mason?" Close quote. Open quote. "You'll know soon enough." Close quote. Before Blake could move, a sharp sound cracked through the tunnel. A single, suppressed shot. Mason stumbled, eyes wide, blood blooming on his shirt. Behind him stood a woman in a black raincoat, face hidden under a hood. Open quote. "Detective Blake," she said in a calm voice. "We've been expecting you." Close quote. The woman dropped her gun, letting it clatter against the wet concrete. When she lifted her face, the torchlight hit her eyes, cold, intelligent, and familiar. It was Emily Carter, the truth beneath the water. The harbor wind was cold, slicing across Ryan and Blake's face as dawn broke over Sydney. The sky blushed orange behind the Harbour Bridge, that iron giant that had haunted his dreams for months. Now it stood silent, holding the answers he'd chased through blood, lies, and betrayal. Emily Carter's message echoed in his mind. Open quote. "Meet me where it all began. At the bridge, at dawn." Close quote. He'd seen her alive last night, the woman whose body he had identified himself. Either he was losing his mind, or Sydney had pulled off the greatest illusion he'd ever seen. 5:30 a.m., the return. Blake parked near the northern pylon, the same spot where her abandoned car had been found. Fog rolled in from the harbor, soft and ghost-like. The world felt hollow, as if holding its breath. Then she stepped out of the mist. Emily Carter, pale but alive, eyes shadowed with secrets. Her voice was calm but cracked with exhaustion. Open quote. "I didn't fake my death, Ryan. They did it for me." Close quote. Blake took a cautious step closer. Open quote. "Who's they?" Close quote. She looked up at the bridge, its arches vanishing into the clouds. Open quote. "Project Siren, a government operation built right beneath this bridge." Close quote. "The hidden lab." Emily led him along a service path under the bridge, down an iron staircase that descended into the pylons. There, behind a corroded metal door, lay a corridor humming with electricity. Old lights flickered, revealing glass panels and consoles buried in dust. Open quote. "This was their base," she said. "They called it the Echo Room." Close quote. She handed him a file sealed in plastic. Inside were photographs, surveillance feeds, autopsy images, psychological reports. Blake flipped through them, confusion rising. Every victim from the bridge suicides wasn't dead. They were test subjects. Open quote. "What the hell am I looking at, Emily?" Close quote. Open quote. "Behavioral control experiments." Project Siren was designed to test how far fear could manipulate the human mind. They'd capture people, erase their identities, and simulate deaths. The city believed they were gone, but they were being reprogrammed. Close quote. Blake's breath hitched. You're saying Sydney's suicides were staged? Open quote. Not all, she said softly. Some didn't survive the tests. Close quote. The mastermind. A low hum rose from deeper inside the chamber. Blake raised his gun, scanning the dark. A voice drifted through the speakers. Smooth, clipped, confident. Open quote. Detective Blake, you've come too far. Close quote. The lights flared, and a man appeared behind the glass wall. Commissioner Harold Grant, head of Sydney Police. Open quote. You? Blake's grip tightened on his gun. You ran this operation? Close quote. Grant smiled faintly. Open quote. Correction, detective. I kept it under control. You can't imagine what happens to a city without fear. Fear keeps people obedient. Predictable. Close quote. Emily slammed a fist on the glass. Open quote. You used people as lab rats. Close quote. Open quote. We used criminals, Grant corrected coldly. The public needed peace. We gave it to them at the cost of a few lost souls. Close quote. Blake took a step closer, voice hard. Open quote. And Emily, was she one of your lost souls? Close quote. Grant's smile darkened. Open quote. She was our first success. The perfect subject, intelligent, fearless, emotionally resilient. She escaped her conditioning, but not the implant we placed in her mind. Close quote. Emily's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Open quote. That voice in your head, the nightmares, the blackouts. They're not trauma, Emily. They're programming. And in about 5 minutes, that programming will erase every memory of this room and him. Close quote. Grant pressed a button. Alarms screamed. The room filled with red light. The collapse. Blake grabbed Emily's hand. Open quote. Run! Close quote. They bolted down the corridor as the facility trembled. Pipes burst overhead, spraying steam. Behind them, explosions tore through the pylons. They reached the end, a maintenance shaft leading straight up to the bridge. Emily climbed first, Blake following close behind as debris fell around them. At the top, they stumbled onto the catwalk just as the first police sirens wailed below. Smoke and sunlight mingled over the harbor, a war between dawn and ruin. Emily collapsed, clutching her head. Open quote. Ryan, I can hear him in my mind. He's inside. Close quote. Blake knelt beside her. Open quote. Fight it, Emily. You're stronger than whatever they made you. Close quote. She looked up, tears streaking through soot. Open quote. If I lose myself again, don't let them take me back. Close quote. Open quote. I won't. Close quote. The final confrontation. Commissioner Grant emerged from the stairwell, pistol drawn. His uniform was torn, his face streaked with blood, but his voice stayed calm. Open quote. You can't save her, Blake. She belongs to us. Close quote. Blake aimed his weapon. Not anymore. For a second, neither moved. The sound of waves crashed below. Then, one shot. Grant fell, his body rolling down the steel grating, vanishing into the smoke. Emily looked at Blake, terrified, trembling, free. But then she whispered, "It's not over." From her pocket, she pulled a small black device, blinking red. Open quote. They can still track me, she said. As long as this chip exists, they'll never stop. Close quote. Before Blake could stop her, she hurled it into the harbor. The device exploded midair, a flash of light over the water. The bridge at dawn. By the time the police arrived, the bridge was quiet again. The fire had died. The files were ash, and Emily Carter was gone. All they found was her jacket, folded neatly on the rail, just like before. Blake stood there, staring into the sunrise. He didn't know if she'd jumped, escaped, or vanished back into the shadows. But one thing was certain, Project Siren wasn't finished. As he turned to leave, his phone buzzed. An encrypted message flashed across the screen. Open quote. The city still bleeds. E. Close quote. He looked up at the bridge one last time, the rising sun burning through the mist, and somewhere deep below the water, a light flickered, as if the truth itself refused to drown. The end.